All right. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. I know we have members around the globe. I'm assuming because we're at an earlier time that we'll have some of our folks across the pond joining us today. So, in the chat, would love for you to tell us where you're joining us from and also a little bit about your brand. When Rebecca and Allie answer your questions today, I think it's always really helpful for them to know who's in the room with us. So, please drop your name and a little bit about your brand in the chat. Also, today's an AMA. If you RSVP'd for today's session, that means you submitted a question ahead of time, but you can submit questions in real time. So also drop those in the chat, and I will be asking those throughout. But as a quick intro, I'm Avery Bradford. I'm head of programming and events for Female Founder Collective, the 10th House, the North, and some other things that we will be announcing soon that we are so excited about. But today's conversation is with our co-founders, Allie Wyatt and Rebecca Minkoff. Allie is the CEO of the 10th House, the North, and Female Founder Collective. She's also an angel investor in some of your favorite companies and a former CRO. So she is a true brand builder, great at spotting revenue opportunities as well as partnership opportunities. And then we have Rebecca Minkoff with us, who is also the co-founder of the 10th House and Female Founder Collective. She is a creator, a designer, an author, a podcaster, a mother. She really does it all. And I'm so excited to chat with them both today. But before we get started, a couple of quick things. So Rebecca and Allie are both North advisors. So this means that you can set up one-on-one time with either one of them. If you're working through something in your business, let's say you want to look for new revenue opportunities, you're starting a fashion brand, you want to get into retail, set up a call with Allie or Rebecca. I'll drop those links in the chat here in a little bit, but you can actually set up one-on-one calls with them and work with them as an advisor. On that same announcement note, the 10th House is now welcoming tech founders. So the 10th House is our private membership community. Every 2 months or so, we welcome a new industry. And right now, we are letting in tech founders. So that's everything from consumer apps, SaaS brands, fintech, health tech, AI, e-com, social, community platforms, ed tech, anything under the tech umbrella. Now is your time to join. You have until July 21st. You want to join this cohort specifically if you're in tech because we are introducing the growth track. And the growth track is basically an accelerator program for anyone in tech. We're bringing in the best of the best leaders, founders, funders, operators to come and teach you about the, operations versus leadership, getting investor ready, financial forecasting and modeling, and building a lean go-to-market strategy, who to hire, when to hire, why, building your wait list, all of those things. So excited for you all to join that. Before I kick it off with our first question for Rebecca, I just want to shout out some folks who are in the room with us. I see Melissa Wood. I see Lissa Wallace, Leslie Cohen. Hi, Leslie. I see Lisa, Danielle, Jennifer. It is so great to have you all here with us today. I am going to kick off with our first question. And this one I'll kick off with you, Rebecca, and then I'll welcome Allie to the stage here. And this one is from Chris H. And that is, if there was one key hire you would have for your company's next stage of growth, who would it be and why? So for the next stage.
If you read women, wait, is
Yep.
it?
Yep.
Okay, it says I'm on mute. Okay. If you read Women's Wear today, we just did a major announcement. And so the next phase is really about branding, storytelling, and keeping our new licensing partners humming with a really good merchant business mind. So I think their role would probably be like chief licensing officer, someone to really pull the business together, but then also has a really strong sales background. And someone who's been in that industry before and knows how to work with new partners. We have about 12 new partners doing licensing with us. And so they need to be a jack of all trades in that arena.
Yeah. Someone at that level, where do you find them?
I think you find them at other companies that have done the same model. So Calvin Klein, Tommy Hilfiger, Nicole Miller, Vera Wang, Ellie Tahari. There's a lot of older, more legacy brands that have very robust licensing partnerships. And so I think the ideal goal is to find someone who is a veteran of that. And then hopefully they have enough experience on the e-com side as well, that they can understand what that looks like for our e-com, because that relationship also changes. We're now buying goods from our licensees, and so that's a different way of doing business than us making it and selling it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if anyone here knows of anyone great, Rebecca will be hiring soon. So keep a lookout for that. Allie, welcome. We have our first question for you from Jacqueline I, and that is, what did your first few hires look like early on? So from a female founder collective, and what would you do differently if you were building the team all over again?
First hires, I would say that it really depends on your business. I think for Female Founder Collective, you were Avery, one of our first hires, because for us, we wanted to really set a strong stake in the ground when it came to programming and making sure that we were providing education for our community that was above and beyond anything that they were able to go and Google or find online. So I would still say that that is super crucial. I think for any company, having a key marketing executive as a first hire is super important as well. But it also depends on, again, what your strengths are or your weaknesses are. So, for example, um, that was marketing wasn't one of our first hires because it's something that Rebecca's excellent at, and she has amazing ideas at how to market without a big budget. Which is exactly what we needed to do. I also came from a background of driving revenue. So we sort of put our heads together and covered off on marketing from that perspective. But if you don't have strength in that, then I think you definitely need that as one of your first hires in the company. And then we'll talk later on about the importance of financial hygiene and making sure that you know how to predict revenues and predict your costs and make sure that you are actually going to be able to build a sustainable business.
Yeah, that leads us perfectly into our next question, actually, from Felicitas. And that is, Allie, any smart hacks on how to scale a service-based business, especially with a limited team size?
I would say from scaling a service-based business, I would say go senior first. Something that I was told in sort of the very first company that I took a management position on was that you need to hire as many people that are doers as possible. And in hearing that, I was like, I believe the opposite to be true, actually, because when you have a small company, you do not have time to manage multiple people. So, or not multiple people, but I would say a lot of people. So the more people you hire, the more of your time is going to be spent coaching, giving instructions, making sure that everybody is doing the role that you set them out to do. Instead, I would think about hiring fewer people that are more senior at the early stages, because then you can start to build departments underneath them and you're not having to manage them because they're better than you at what they do. So I think that's a really important thing. You don't want to hire people that are going to need a ton of guidance early on, because you just simply won't have the bandwidth to be able to help them and sort of hold hands.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, especially for service-based brands. Rebecca, this next question is for you, and it's a two-parter. That is, what variety of channels did you use to acquire your first 100 customers? Which worked best? And then, if you were to start your brand today in 2025, what would be your recommendation for getting those first 100 customers?
My first 100 customers were specialty retailers. This was 20 years ago. So the way you launched a brand, there wasn't direct to consumer. So there was a heavy focus on getting 500 specialty stores before selling ever to a bigger wholesaler. You need that brand awareness and that sort of advertising, if you will, within these specialty stores, for people to recognize your name when you walk into a department store. I always tell anyone, please don't rush to get into these department stores. It is a huge headache sometimes. They're incredible, but you have to be big enough to support a team to deal with them, the right salespeople, the right logistics people. It's not just easy, like, oh, I just shipped it to a mailbox. As far as if I were starting over, how would I get my first 100 customers? I would probably do some sort of grassroots campaign, and tell 10 of my friends to tell 10 of their friends to order something from me, or at least minimally get on my mailing list. And I would start building up a big mailing list and then begin to play with how many emails does it take to get one order? Good. That's, if I need 100 orders, then, do the math according to the proportions that we learn in high school. And I would also just know that you have to have a lot of different channels, to be always on to gain people, whether it is all your social media, your paid advertising. The thing that I would stress is you need to make sure that if you have dead customers in your database and you are marketing to them and you're keeping their emails just in case, and you've done a sunset flow with them and they're still not buying, delete them. They're not only hurting your open rates, but when you upload that mailing list to Facebook and then you're advertising to people who are lookalike audiences, they are going to pick lookalike audiences to the people that don't want your product. We just did a major cleanup, and our ROAS has increased significantly because we're talking to people who actually are interested. So just make sure that it's not necessarily like the biggest mailing list, it's the quality of people and that they actually want the product.
So true. That's such a good point. This next question is from Amber Kai, and I think it's a really good one because I feel like today you're seeing companies that even aren't membership sites hiring people to build communities for their brands, whether that be on social, in real life, through experiences and pop-ups. You're seeing these brands do really creative things to create community. So this question from Amber is, what is the best way to build community for a new brand with limited marketing dollars? Allie, would love to start with you, and then Rebecca would love your thoughts. Oh, and you're on mute, Allie, actually.
Sorry about that. So I read a book by Peter Thiel called 0 to 1, and he talks about building networks and building communities. And something that even we learned after launching Female Founder Collective and starting our own community is specificity initially is so crucial, because that's how you create the network effect, right? Like that is the way that you're able to get people who are super leaned into your community, because that foundational community needs to be obsessed. They need your community so much and have it be so value additive for their lives or for whatever transformation you're trying to achieve with them, that they are going to start passing it along, and you're going to want them to pass it along to at least, I think the number is something like 4 or 5 people initially. So being super specific. So what does that mean for us? Initially, we were like, oh, female founders. Well, that's great. And being a female founder is a unique experience that you all have a lot of commonalities with one another. But then you would ask us, okay, I'm a female founder, but I'm a service-based business, or I'm a product-based business, or I'm in tech and I absolutely need to raise capital, whereas somebody who's a service-based business might not need to raise capital. Or somebody that's in a consumer business might be able to jump off with just a couple products and might not need to raise capital. So you're going to have very different experiences in moving through different industries. So we got even more specific later on. And in terms of using as little capital as possible, I would just start off with utilizing your social media as community, right? Like tapping into the things that Instagram has, or using Substack to create a community and a following, and starting to get people's feedback, just creating a two-way dialogue with your consumers. If it is a consumer brand, or about whatever you're selling, whatever the topic is, where you start to converse with them on a regular basis. And
Yeah.
then,
Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead. I was just letting
That
go.
was, that was really interesting. Before you all launched the 10th house, was that all of your community members were on Slack, and that gave you all that two-way conversation with people before you launched the 10th house, So you had all of this data basically about them and their pain points and what they truly wanted, which I feel like gave you all such clarity when it came time to offer a private membership community, which is what you're talking about there with Substack and
That's
Instagram.
exactly right. And then Rebecca with her brand, I mean, obviously, Rebecca, you can speak to this, but with those initial in real life events too were so important to building community and ultimately getting to hear firsthand what people wanted and needed, not only from you as a product company, but just as a brand.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything you would add to that, Rebecca, about building community, especially today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan. I call it the Tupperware party, but how do you get the coolest of the cool people within your subset town? Doesn't have to be the most popular or influential always. To host events and parties for you and meet your customer. You know, there are also great places that exist online, forums. You know, the purse forum for me was gold. It was women talking about my bags. So I made a login and I talked to them about my bags. We did a ton of special orders that way. We did special, unique only codes and offers and incentives just for this community. And, you know, they call themselves the Minkoffs to this day. And so I think, you know, people want to hopefully just hide behind their screens, launch their brand, press a button, but there's nothing that takes the place of human connection. And you need it in the beginning, especially if you've launched a new company and you're trying to get the word out there. It is that one-to-one or one too many in a human setting. And then I would just add to it that TYB is a platform that it helps with community and organizing it and tokenizing it that consumer brands can look into.
Yes, that's Ty Haney's brand, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been hearing so many great things about it. Rebecca, these next couple of questions are for you. This one's from Monica, and that is, what advice would you give to a founder who's building a lifestyle brand and is looking to secure retail partnerships?
I just need a little bit more information on what a retail partner is. It just selling to a retailer? Is it like doing in-store events or in-store like exclusives or?
I would assume getting into retail.
Well, I would either start with an agency that is already existing, that already has those connections, or going to trade shows or cold calling, and asking for the buyer or looking them up on LinkedIn and then DMing them. It's going to take a lot more outbound reach out. That's why sometimes starting with an agency is nice. And we sort of had an agency in the very beginning. And our rule was, and if we're paying her 10%, when that number starts to be people we can hire, then we'll take it in house. So when we hit 10 million in sales, we were paying her $1 million a year. But she didn't have people just focus on our brand. They were focused on 8 brands. But we said with $1 million a year, theoretically, we could hire 10 people at 100,000 each to just be full time on the selling. So that was the moment that we said, okay, good. Now we're gonna go in house, which is a lot more work, but you have a lot more control. So I always suggest the agencies that are out there that are already sort of well known and have those relationships.
Very smart. And then this second one is, I'm building a company that also sells, I'm building a service company that also sells products. How do you balance content creation and brand storytelling when building the e-commerce side?
I think the more you tell story and focus on the imagery, look and feel, that's what's going to sell your product. Anyone can buy any nameless thing on Amazon now. And so if you have a better story or a better one-to-one resonation, that's what people are looking for. They're looking for connection and they're looking for you to uniquely solve their problem. So the more you can shout from the rooftops, this is the problem I solve, this is the story, this is how I'm connecting, then hopefully that person buys from you over, the $10 tank top somewhere else.
Yeah. Before we get into operations, Allie, this question is for you. And Rebecca, if you have something to add, would love your thoughts too. This is from Heather H. And that is, when considering expanding into new product lines, how do you evaluate what aligns with your brand and what could be a distraction? And I think this is really interesting because obviously, as FFC, you all have introduced new product lines, and Rebecca, you have as well. So, Allie, how do we as a team, or how do you and Rebecca evaluate new product lines before we introduce them into FMC?
Well, I think it goes back to listening to your consumer, or your customer in certain cases too, in terms of what they're looking for. If you have a tech company, it's like what features do you keep hearing that people need or want, or when you're interacting with your customers, they keep saying like, if only you could do this, or is this possible yet? When it comes to the products itself, I think a lot of times you're going to also get that feedback from the customer as well, right? And so there are these sort of natural extensions that can happen. Then from there, once you have a lot of data points saying, okay, this is something they definitely want. And I'll speak to something that we're launching now that has been very successful upon launch because we had a lot of data points that we had taken into consideration. But after that, it's really modeling it out, right? What does this look like financially for the company? What kind of resources do we need to put against it, right? Like, because everything costs money too, even beyond inventory, even if it's a service that you're offering. From a service perspective, if I'm a service business and I already have so many people at my company, do I need to hire additional employees? How much does it cost to hire those additional employees? What do I need to pay them? Do they need bonuses? Um, Same thing for if you are launching a new product. Can you use the existing team that you have there? Are there specific parts that you could use from existing products that you're putting out into market that you could then take and put over into this? Or are you going to entirely have entirely new inventory? Do you need new factories because it's an entirely new product line and the factories that you currently use don't produce something like that? You have to take all of those things into consideration and then just do the math. And the nice thing is like the intuition piece is the hearing from your customers, making sure you have your ear to the ground on that side. And then doing the math is really just making sure that, oh, okay, I now know this is something that our consumers or our customers want. And from an economic perspective, it makes a ton of sense for us as a business. Like, this is the potential of what we could make, and this is what it would cost. And we would be profitable from day one, or we would be profitable within 6 months or a year or whatever the amount of time is. So I actually think it's a fun exercise, and it makes it really exciting when you can run the math and know that you're not going to fail at trying something new.
Yeah, Rebecca, anything to add to that as far as introducing new product lines goes?
Do you mean entirely new product lines, or like I have a bag and then I want to add like different
Shoes or
yeah.
Yeah, the exact wording is when considering expanding into new product lines. So I would assume it's a whole new, not from bags to something similar to bags,
Okay.
bags to lipsticks or something.
Yep. Um, I would ask yourself, why am I launching this? Is there a desire from the consumer that wants it? Within the fashion industry, you get sort of labeled and put in as one thing. And then most people buy you for that. So 90% of our business is bags, 10% of our business is clothing, and shoes, and we're hoping to grow the shoes. Once you're stuck in that mindset, it's really hard to get that same customer to then cross over. So you have to be ready to market to an entirely different customer. A shoe and a bag purchase is usually the same. It's sizeless. You can be any shape. But let's say you're really petite and we don't make a petite size, or you're plus and we don't make double X. So then it gets into a scenario where you have to go and get new customers for that thing. So ask yourself, why is it needed? Is it an ego trip? Is it something you love? Are you seeing a white space? And then there are times like Jennifer Fisher, she has a jewelry company, but yet she is an avid and obsessive cook. So what does she have? Salts. It's the rare thing that two separate and totally different things now connect in the world. And so I think it can work, but it is a lot of work to do both. And I guarantee you, not all of the jewelry people are buying salts and vice versa. So she might have two entirely different audiences, hence different Instagram handles that she has to constantly be making sure she promotes to.
Yeah, my mother-in-law, I went to the cabin open up the cabin. She has Jennifer Fisher salts. And I'm like, do you know who this is? She's like, no. I'm like,
There
what?
you
How did this happen? She
Yeah.
also is not on Instagram. So yeah, you're so right. Okay, Rebecca, this next question is for you as well. And that is, what were some hard lessons you encountered looking back at your earliest investor conversations?
I think the early mistake is you think this is the only chance. You think this is the only investor that's ever going to be interested in you. And there's sort of like this, oh my gosh, if I don't take this opportunity, then we'll never get it. That's far from true, especially if you are successful and you have great profit margin and you know what you're doing. You will find that person, and it's not always, a situation, you should never put yourself in a situation where you're so desperate you'll just take anybody. So I just wish we would have been a little bit more solid with ourselves and not so in a rush we didn't just sign with anyone. It was definitely a 9-month long process. But at the end of the day, our first investor was not the best fit for the brand. And certainly the people that they put on the board were the wrong people. We had a gentleman on the board who knew about protein bars. That doesn't help sell bags. So all of his knowledge was somewhat useless to us. And so just keep making sure that at the end of the day, you're picking a person that's best for you and the future of your business, and not like, oh my gosh, cash is going to solve everything, because it won't.
Yeah. Allie, I'm curious from your perspective as someone who's been on both sides of the table, what mistakes you see founders make in investor conversations.
Well, some that we made early on, in being on the founder side of the table and raising capital. One is in the first company where we raised a ton of capital, we listened to everything the investor had to say, right? Like, we just assumed because they're the investor and they're the people with the money, that like everything that they are telling you about what you should be doing is right. I think that in most cases that is wrong. It's wise to listen to your investors, but make sure you're running it through your own filters and your own sort of internal exercises to make sure it's right for the business. Because a lot of times, like, I'll give you the example. When I was at Refinery 29, our investors were like, you guys need to do video. Video is the next frontier. No media company is going to be worth anything unless they're doing long form video. And we had a ton of short form video that we had been doing, and nobody was watching these short form videos. Like, if you actually looked at the numbers, like, we were not a video company. Like, that is not what people came to us for. But lo and behold, because our investors were so adamant about it, we ended up making that the core strategy of the company for the year. And we invested millions of dollars in creating these long form episodic video series that at the end of the day, surprise, surprise, no one watched. And it was actually a huge downfall for the company. Like, it was a huge turning point that was very tough to come back from. So that's one example of it going wrong. So don't always listen to your investors. They don't know what's best for your business in most cases. And then the other thing I would say is transparency. Even if it's something that you're very scared to tell them, at the end of the day, now being on the opposite side of the table, your investors want you to win, right? Like, they put money in and they put it behind you so they could get a return. So if you're sitting there telling them things or hiding them things about the business that you don't want them to know because it's not good, there's no way they can help you. They can't help you get in front of it. And I've actually seen scenarios where there were businesses that could have sold, and they could have sold for a lot more money, but they were afraid to tell the investors that they were in a precarious position and they needed to sell. And so they took the first offer that came their way and ended up making no money. And so it's something where they always want to help you. The more information you can share with them, the better. Also, the better your relationship will be. It's like any great relationship, transparency is so important, and trust is so important, so that you can work together, because your investors at the end of the day do want to help you. So those were two really important things on the from both sides of the table.
Such great pieces of advice. I really like this next question. Oh, also getting a lot of great feedback in the chat. Keep that coming. A great question from Krupa, and that is for both of you. And it says, there's a lot of conversation about brand building right now. What do you see as the most underused or overrated branding tactics? Rebecca, would love to start with you. Most underused or overrated branding tactics?
I think underused is really, I'm fascinated with the brands that are showing you the build in real time. And that resonates with me. Like, hey, I'm starting this thing. Watch me go. Deal with inventory. The founders of that protein bar do it really well. Midday Square. And then there's a couple of like influencer turned sweatsuit brands, Comfort, CMFRT or something like that, that are also showing it to you. And I think they're just stripping away the true hard work it takes to build something. And I think that's another way of connecting with your customer. And then they're like, wow, she's really at the factory shipping that product. Let me like throw her a bone and order that, because they're on the journey with you. They're invested. It's like a movie character. You know, you want whatever, the guy on the Mission Impossible to win. And so I think it's not used enough, and people are scared. Like, I have to show this perfection that I've figured it all out. No one's figured it all out at all. I guarantee it. Except for maybe Hill House Home. But other than that, I think don't be scared to show that, because people find it fascinating.
Yeah, that blog style content. What do you think, Allie? Most underused or overrated branding tactics?
I would sort of double click on content creation. I think content creation is so important. And a lot of founders ask, what if I haven't created my business yet? Like Rebecca said, all the better. Now everybody can be on that journey with you. They can give you feedback on what color you ultimately make your packaging, or like how you brand something. They can give insight in the name. I think we have so much at our disposal now, and we're just even at the beginning of how much you're able to utilize content creation. And going back also to Rebecca's point on imperfection, like I think and I fall prey to this as well. Like, I hate being on camera. I hate talking about what I'm doing. I'm like, who wants to know what I'm doing? I certainly don't. I'm like, why is anybody interested in this? But the fact of the matter is, as you're building something, people they want to know the story behind it. I would also say, and I say this to everyone, build your freaking email list. I don't care what kind of company you are, you need an email list. With everything going on with social and AI and all of the platforms that are out there, like, it is the most rudimentary thing you can do. And it cannot be stressed enough. That's something that I'm always stressing with our marketing team. I'm like, email list growth is the most important thing we can do strategically as a company.
100%. I'm getting so many people in the chat. Leslie, yes, this is being recorded. If you RSVP, we'll send you a replay after this. Also, if you're a 10th house member, we always put the replays inside of the 10th house for you. I also see someone in here is joining the 10th house tech cohort, which we'll talk a little bit more about in just a moment. But a lot of great conversations happening in the chat. Zoe says Tea Lady Katie does that well as far as the vlogging, behind the scenes content goes. This next question is for you, Rebecca, and it's from Maria M. And it is, Rebecca, how do you advise new female founders who feel pressure to always do more when building their brand? Oh, and let me unmute you.
I think it's harder on female founders than it was 10, 15 years ago, where you could just do your work and that's what you did. And now it's like, do your work and show the content and be a media company and be a mother and be a wife and be all these things. And it's a lot. And I think that it's like, I feel like sometimes I'm going to crack. I know a lot of other women say, take on what you can do well. Don't worry that someone else has a YouTube channel and a Snapchat and a Twitter and a whatever. Like, we're only able to do that because we have scaled to the point where we can afford to have other people doing that for us. But like, pick one thing and do it well. If you know you can do Instagram, just do that. If you feel like your audience is better suited for TikTok, just do that. Like, only take off and don't beat yourself up about it, because if you're doing it right, you will scale and you will be able to hire for it. And also allow yourself to have time to test a newsletter. Does it get traction? If it does, start a Substack. I think there's a lot of things that people think like all the shiny objects and they want them all at once, but it really is a slow build. And as you expand, you try something. Is it working? Great. Let's adopt it. And just try and keep your blinders on to some degree so that you're not seeing what everyone else is doing, but really they have a team doing it. I have a team.
Yeah.
Personally, professionally, at home, I have a fucking team. Sorry, LinkedIn. Can't swear. And it's impossible to do without it. So just know that.
Yeah, so true. Allie, this question is very similar to that. And this one's for you from Valerie L. And that is, how do you keep sane when you're feeling overwhelmed by growth or pressure to grow?
I would say that I have my non-negotiables that I always set up and like in my life and every business. And I learned about it when I wasn't when I wasn't my own boss. And it was a really good thing to have to learn. And it was basically like when I started to have kids, I needed to create, I hate to call them boundaries because again, for me, it's not negotiables. Like I have like every night I know that I want to put my kids down for bed whenever I'm home, right? And I don't want to be out more than X number of nights per week. Or for business trips, I only want them to be so long. Because that's how much, like for me, for my own sanity, I need to be away from my kids. I'm like, I need a minimum number of hours of sleep a night. Like, I hate this sort of founder culture of you see all these people and like Inc. magazine and all these places being like, oh, I only need 5 hours of sleep a night or 4 hours of sleep a night. Like maybe for that year or maybe for 2 years, but like you're going to die early. Like that is so bad for you. And for me personally, I am a total, I guess I can't swear, but I'm a total B if I do not get more than 7 hours of sleep. Like it's just I have no sense of rationale. So it's like I set up my non-negotiables. I need to take a walk in the morning. Like I find if I don't walk in the morning, I don't think as well. I'm not as clear. And it's like, and it's also my joy, right? So my strategy is not when I get overwhelmed, it's I have my non-negotiables so I don't get there. So it's almost never that I get there because I'm like, I have my things that I need. And I know if I start to become overwhelmed, it's because I've let go of my non-negotiables. So I just try to get back to those. And then it tends to work out. Like I get a good night's sleep and I'm like, oh, that wasn't that big of a deal.
Oh yeah, everyone is agreeing. Learning non-negotiables are needed, sometimes the hard way. Thank you for bringing up family and sleep. Absolutely. All so relatable. Okay, we have time for a couple more questions. And if you do have questions in real time, drop them in the chat. I know a lot of you submitted them ahead of time. This next question is for both of you, and it's from Jenna S. How did you organize your early projects and tasks when launching a brand to ensure momentum without burning out? Along that same note, Rebecca, let's start with you.
I'm a big list maker. I have my it's called dashboard. It has all the categories, all the brands, all the
I've never seen this, guys. I love this.
I've never seen this either.
I'm such a nerd. Look, see?
Rebecca, we have a new product that we should sell.
I know, right? But what I love about dashboard is weekly theme, focus areas, top priorities, and I just have every category: podcast, book, FFC, RM, personal shit. Sorry. Divided into different pages, and then I can easily go, okay, what is the priority for today? What is like something I know I want to accomplish at some point that I need to have a reminder for? And it keeps me feeling like it's not all in my head. It's not all in my phone. Because sometimes I don't want to be on my phone and I just want to be able to like write things down, cross them off. So that's why I've done it from the beginning. I've actually kept all of my journals. They're not journals, but like all my things, because I think one day it'll be interesting to reflect back, like, what did I have? I remember when I first got Sarah Jessica Parker's cell phone number. That's in one of those books, because I was like, I have to text her and send her some bags. And so this is how I operate. It's how my brain functions.
Same. I have about 6,000 of these.
Yes.
And I just was going through, because we were doing a book exchange, and I was pulling out all of my old journals, all my old to-do lists. And I'm like, oh, that thing that I wrote down that I really wanted to do in 2021, I did. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
It's so fun to see. What about you, Allie? How do you organize your projects and tasks, especially when launching?
I do it a similar way. I honestly, I used to be on paper writing things down, and then I would misplace my journals, and so then I was like, I can't. I stopped being able to find them, and that happened a few times. And I was like, okay, this needs to be where I'm always working. So, I'm in my notes app all the time, and I'm resorting it each day. I go through and I reprioritize, because, like, to be honest with you, I can never be a week out and be like, and have like the same to-do list. It changes so drastically. For my family, it doesn't. And that's something where family, it's like on the weekend, on Sunday I actually have my reminder time. Like, this is my hour where I go through and I'm like, okay, what are the kids' stuff? What do we have to be at? My husband has an assistant, and we actually reach out to her whenever, like, the kids' sports schedules comes out, or like anything for school, like school performances, and that all goes immediately onto our calendars. And then for really important things, we have reminders a week out. But when it comes to the week ahead, it's a daily looking at the priorities at the top of the day and at the end of the day. And then I would say, in order to keep things organized, I have to say personally, just in terms of launching businesses, and I've now been fortunate enough to launch multiple businesses. The first thing I do is I hire owners, and I know who is owning what. And it's not me, because if the company is going to move forward, it's impossible for me to own stuff. And I really do believe that as a founder, the best thing that you can do is start to delegate almost from day one. You might say, how am I going to have the money to do that? It's an investment that I would make. Even if it's short term, you're like, okay, listen, I can afford a person for 3 months to help me work on this project and get it launched, so that they're the person that is pushing it forward each day, because you're going to have so many different tasks that pop up as a founder or as a CEO or whatever your role is in the business, that it's nearly impossible for you to be the key owner, and you would crumple under the weight. So that's something that, honestly, it's like, I'm like, Avery, like, the programming piece is yours. I've been owning something for our company just because of how it's worked out from a contract perspective. We got money in from a partner that has enabled us to fund it. And it's been a disaster for the poor team, because it's like, I should not be owning anything, because I don't have the bandwidth to own something and to be following up with all the different departments. So that's something that I would give yourself grace as a founder, and just know that it's a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah, it is. It is, especially if you're in a service business. I feel like it's so hard to let that go. This last question before we wrap up. This is from the audience, from Grace, for both Rebecca and Allie. How is AI affecting your business, and how are you using it? Rebecca, would love to know from your side.
I think that right now we're using it for a lot of copy. We're using it for like the shells and the beginnings of press releases. I am not using it yet in any of our product or photography or models. I'm still playing with it. I also tasked my creative director to start playing with it too. I'm trying to carve out like Fridays to be like my AI time, where I can experiment with different platforms. It takes a lot of prompts, but there is a woman that recently kind of took me through the Cliff's Notes of the different things to focus on. And I think that my goal is to become fluent in those lovable Midjourney, obviously ChatGPT, but she's, she really underlined and stressed that AI is only as good as the prompts that you feed them, and it isn't a paragraph. Sometimes she will upload like 10 pages of background information and data for the AI to think with and come back with, so it can be smarter about what it gives you. Otherwise, you're just educating and back and forth. You can save a lot of, and you have these documents already. You have your brand guidelines. You have all the press you've ever gotten. You have, if you've ever spoken, you can upload all of that in one shot and then get back some intelligent things. So hopefully we'll get her to speak to everybody. And then you can all hear her glorious pearls of wisdom. And she's been advising all the big AI companies for the last like 10, 15 years. So she really is an industry expert.
Yes, can't wait to bring her to you all, especially to our tech founders who are going to be joining us at the end of this month. Speaking of, last question for you, Allie, is what can founders expect to experience inside of the 10th house? Especially for our tech founders, I talked a little bit about the growth track, which is really that accelerator program that they'll go through starting in September. Anything you want to add to or expand upon as far as what they can expect inside the 10th house?
So I think what's really exciting is the growth track. I can't underscore enough how juicy and important this is. Something that we've found in working with some founders in the past is the ones that do struggle with success are really the ones that don't have a good foundation. And that foundation really rests in your model, your numbers, what your role is within the company, right? Because if you are uncertain about where you want to be in the next 12 months, then the entire team is going to be uncertain, or it's going to be impossible to hire anybody because you're not going to know who you need, right? You're not going to know what your priorities should be that day. So the growth track's really going to give you a way to create a roadmap for your business financially, but also strategically. And it also is going to give you filters. That's how I love to think about it. So as you're going through your decisions, it makes it so much easier to make them because okay, like these are the priority filters for my business. These are my goals. This is not a priority, or this is going to be top priority because it gives us the biggest earn potential, or it gives us the biggest potential to grow our email list, or it's going to give us a ton of exposure from a social media perspective, or whatever it is, it's going to be most important to you initially. So I'm really excited to work through that with people. And also, what we're going to be doing is if you are raising capital, and this isn't just for those that are raising capital, but if you are, it's going to help you create those benchmarks for investors so that when you're in those conversations, you know exactly what to tell them in terms of what they can expect. And that's the most important thing for investors to know is what can I expect and when could I potentially get returns? And if you have confidence in that, it's going to work whether it's with investors, with potential customers or consumers. They're going to feel that in their conversations with you. So couldn't be more excited about that as an addition that we're not charging for. It's something that you'd otherwise probably pay over $25,000 for. That's just in terms of strategic planning that I've done in the past and what has been charged of me. So super excited about that. And then obviously the community is something that you can't stress enough. Just being able to go to other people and crowdsource this knowledge is invaluable. So
100%.
very excited.
And we have so much coming up for our tech founders. On August 6th, we'll be in New York City. Rebecca will actually be hosting a tech pitch demo day. We have applications closed on the 25th. So we're really going to elevate our tech founders in our community, put them in front of tech funders, tech investors. So you'll have an opportunity to pitch to them. We also, in addition to the growth track, we have a workshop about how to build a go-to-market strategy as a non-technical tech founder. So people who are building tech-based brands, but maybe don't come from a tech background, we have a really incredible workshop for you. I dropped the link in the chat to apply to the 10th house. And then if you're thinking to yourself, wow, I wish I had more time with Allie or Rebecca, you can. We have the North where you can set up one-on-one advising sessions with either or both of them. And I also dropped a link in the chat for that. But thank you everyone who joined us today. I will be posting the replay inside of the 10th house by tomorrow. And if you have any other questions, we host these sessions periodically, mainly for our 10th house members inside of the 10th house, but we also bring them to you publicly every now and again too. So keep an eye out for those. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Allie. Thank you, Rebecca, so much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.